to just create, that goes right there in the center, create a tower, so to speak, of the color so that you've got a strong base as well as that great geometric shape or something that's fun when we're dealing with the young generation. They don't want their grandma's things, but they like things to appear old. But then they come in and they say, let's use those cubes that have been around forever, but I don't want just the same old thing. I want to put something on there that's a little different and something that creates those shapes within what I've already got going on. So we looked at adding these armatures, so to speak, to start to create this youthful appearance. Bringing in those armatures over the cubes sort of changes your eye when you look at the table. It brings everything back down. We've layered the color. Now we've dressed it up. And now I want to be able to take this one over the top and see what we can do if we can blow the budget right out of there. There we go. They must have been coming from the top, right? It's really important that you use all of your product as much as possible and show that it doesn't have to always be completely covered with orchids, but taking a few sprays and really spreading that impact out is a great way that you can add that over-the-top look without killing the budget. Now I know all of you are going to say, you're kidding me? You didn't just kill the budget, you've pushed it right out of the room. But taking it as far up, and maybe you don't do every table like this, but this is going to cause some stir when people walk into a room. I would like to thank Smithers Oasis, because where would we be in our industry without Smithers? I called Kelly and she said, absolutely anything that we can get for you. This Mendolino is incredible for what it can do. You can take a little bit and really make it look like a whole lot by not blowing the budget in there. But then it's very important. Acolyte, Masa was incredible again to bring us the acolytes to utilize so that you can incorporate all the colors and really light that up, because illumination is important. It can really set the tone, set that ambiance within the room. So thank you so much, Bloomnet, Napco, Smithers Oasis, Acolyte, for the product for this table. For this look, we really wanted to see what we could do that was that other part of today's generation, which happens to be the ones that really want to recycle, repurpose. They're a bit more a naturalist. So when I made this phone call, I said, we need to do something that's very colorful, but you only get white and black for the table. That was very important with this particular look, which I wanted to call Wow Tables. And when I called Ted and said that I wanted him to do this one and looked at Mark Addison, one of the first things that we noticed when we looked at Mark's work was that he was sort of all over the board. He tended to take a lot of color, but then layer it on top of branches or to utilize other things to incorporate. So I told Ted he had to be sure and do that. So Ted, everyone, Ted Brule, AIFD.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jackie.
Ted was actually the one that got me to join membership committee, and we talked about it, and again, I may kill him after that as well. I just stepped into as chairperson right now. So I've had a few hats this week, but membership committee is one of the best places in AIFD to start. You get to know everyone that's been around for some time and see all the youth that's coming in as well. So those of you that were just inducted, membership is a great place to start, especially since it's me. Give me a call later on.
And
Ted,
he's still speaking to me.
I'm not sure he's going to continue, though, after this. It's incredible when you call and say, can you help me with, and how quickly that turns in, can you do? And that's what they all found out right away. Ted, when I presented Mark Addison and Wow Tables to you, how did you come up with this concept?
Well, there were only two major centerpiece photos on Mark's website, so there wasn't a lot to choose from. But the first one was a long rectangular table of blocks, color blocks of roses. And the client base for this table likes texture. So just doing blocks of roses is not going to appeal to them as much. So I kept the color blocks, but used all different types of flowers and different textures, sizes, and shapes. And then these fabulous ceramic trays from NAPCO allowed me to stack and cantilever the containers so that I could add more depth to the texture. But I really had a hard time hanging onto these containers because every designer that came into the workroom wanted them. But I managed to keep them.
This is one of our newest containers, and it's very important that the container sort of coordinates and sets the tone for the table because you're going to be looking at that. When you talk to people that have attended events, weddings especially, when they come out, they can't really remember what the bride carried. They remember what she wore, number one, and number two, they usually remember the centerpiece because they sit in front of that for the majority of the time. So if you want to keep things low and compact, you have to look for other shapes that will work rather than just round. And remember that no-no area. If you put your elbow on the tabletop, you should never have anything that is above the elbow unless it's above the head. So there's that little bit of space that you can see the person across the table. When looking at the other things for this, what was really important was that it stayed a bit more natural. And how did you do that to bring this in?
Well, we called upon Mr. Orange Man himself, Jerry Gregg, to create some structures that you're going to see a little bit later, but that brought in the wood texture, which allowed for the texture of the ceramic containers. And
why don't we look and see what we could do if we had a little bit more budget to work with?
And in my case, it is just a little bit more budget. We're not doing a big second layer, but we all have those customers who come in and they want those towering centerpieces for $50 each. And of course, that's not realistic. So what they're bringing out now is the more realistic version of that.
Sometimes you may not have a huge budget, and especially if you're trying to do 2 or 3 different looks within a room, you want to make sure that you think about, should we do this on a third of the tables, then maybe layer in on another third something very inexpensive so that we save that final big bang for the big buck so that you can really blow that out on the table and do something completely different.
So while they're setting that up, we did a very simple chair back treatment. These chairs are very modern looking, and for this client base, they like more simple and dynamic lines with the texture. So when I started in the business, it was always, what did we ever do before Smithers Oasis foam? Now, it's what did we ever do before Smithers U-Glue? All of this is U-Glue dots.
No, please.
Exactly, please. The napkin treatment as well. It's just a strip of challah that's U-glued together, the ghost wood on top, and then the flowers on top of that. Quick as it can be.
And who would have ever thought that we'd be able to use pieces of branches that we've gathered up from out in the woods, paint them a little bit, and bring them to table, and that be acceptable? Anyone that's seen other of my programs, I try to use as much or recycle as much as I possibly can. And a lot of times I'm pulling Tim Farrell, I've pulled things out of his wastebasket, Sharon McGuckin. They see me over there digging around looking for texture because it's so important in the market today to see what we've got. And being able to incorporate that for a natural look is incredibly important.
The second design on Mark's website that we saw was a long rectangle of manzanita branches superimposed on flowers with lots of butterflies attached. And that's whimsical for a bridesmaid luncheon or a birthday party, but something that's a little more upscale. The butterflies, while a good look, aren't quite the proper task. So we used Phalaenopsis orchids, which our clients call butterfly orchids or moth orchids, to achieve that butterfly look without having the actual critter.
Well, let's look and see what we could do if we could take this over the top.
All right, we could do that.
I knew first thing Ted said to me is, I'm not sure that I want to be on stage. I'm not comfortable being a stage designer. I think he's going to prove himself wrong by the pieces that you're going to see. One of the things that we did collaborate with Jerry Gregg is making these incredible pieces.
Thank you. Well, one thing I have to say, I'm from Dallas and everything is bigger in Texas. So instead of all these little components, I just made 2 big ones.
That's why Ted really had to save part of that middle budget for that ending budget, because I told him this is going to take it not just over the top, but out of our range. So make sure. I love the way that he's incorporated those layers of color. If you really look at this sphere, no matter which direction you look at it, it's something different. And that's incredibly important to every tablescape that you're doing. As they move around the room, and especially the camera is going to pick up different things from different tables, the back side is just as important as the front side. Remember that when you're setting up a venue. Ted, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done and what you've brought to the table. Anything else you'd like to share with us about these pieces?
Well, I also had kind of the square peg in a round hole syndrome. All the inspiration pictures were long rectangular tables. And when you do square containers, how do you create the unity of a round table with your design? So that's how we came up with the round shapes and the circles that Jerry created for us.
Thank you again so much for everything.
You're very welcome. I need to thank BloomNet, of course, and Orange Man Wholesale for the structures, my assistant Jeremy Trentleman, and NAPCO. And now, let's see if someone can top this.
Looking at having 5 themes up on the table or on the stage, it was really difficult. And how are we going to set this up and be able to see everything? Because I really wanted to do something spectacular for this last one. And this last person that I'm going to bring out was very important that it ended the program on a high note. And this one is going to be called Party Like a Rock Star, because isn't that really what we want every party to be? So that those clients feel like the center of attention, the rock star, so to speak. This is set off of someone called Jess Gordon, who's been out in the industry for quite some time. She's a dynamic person, bubbly, jumps around, been on several different food programs, as well as a huge event person up in New York. And she really does set a tone with everything she does. I called Donald Jim because Donald happens to be a great friend of mine. We work together. We've known each other for some time. Seriously, Donald?
I guess become a designer is not an easy ride,
He's the only one that could possibly fit on that tricycle anyway. Donald and I work together at Floreology and have become great friends since we got to know each other and have had the opportunities to work on many different projects. But I knew that this was a task that only he could bring to the stage because of his incredible style, and everything that he touches becomes a complete piece of art.
Thank you. I think.
Please.
Okay. Going back to my roots. Red is the color in my culture is for party. So you can see, I got red going on, and then also I'm using the white to complement the red. Why I'm not using black? Because I find the white color make the glass elements clear and clean. So and also as a designer, when you do things, you have a visions. We go along when we're changing, always changing, because we're just indecisive. So I'm using a lot, and also I keep it in just only 2 types of flowers. Make it clean and simple, and I just only using Gloriosa lily and roses. So keep it clean and simple. Less is more.
That's really a big trend that we're seeing in the market. If you think about it, How long ago did we start doing the gathered or clustered groupings that we see that are so popular? And people have grown to expect that. It's a very clean look. I happen to work a lot with designs going to camera, and you have to keep it to 3 or fewer products to really get a clean photograph. So think about that on the table. If you can use 1 or 2 products to really stand out and make that bold statement, such as something like red or hot pink, do that so that you see every bit of the flower and the artistry in each one of those flowers. How did you come up with this particular product that you wanted to use for this look?
I'm using fiber stick a lot in my work because I want to keep it simple and strict. Parallel system is one of my favorite design style, so I want to keep it in a parallel system, but I'm using different texture and different material to make that a little different, so it's not just only parallel, but within the parallel system, I'm still using different texture, like water tube and color water tube to make that different. So it's not read as a matchy-matchy, but it's still within the parallel system.
And one of the things that I want everyone to notice that Donald has left a lot of the mechanics exposed. That's very acceptable in the market today because it adds another layer of texture. Leaving those zip ties attached on there gives a different direction to that parallel shape that's going on up there.
And I find it's give a little bit more like industrial looking and contemporary look.
And it also, leaving the tubes exposed is a great way for you not to have to think of how I'm going to keep this flower alive through the life of the party, or can I go ahead and get these done in advance as we all know we have to do. Donald, how about we look and see what could happen if we had a little bit more money to spend on this budget?
Okay, you can see the top part is a little bit offside, but I deliberately doing that because I don't want everything is so straight because all my parallel system is straight. I want to make a little twist on it. So it's not about the backstage team make it wrong. Don't blame on them. It's me to make it like a different look.
And we will fess up a little bit. We were incredibly disappointed at rehearsal when we were told that could not be lowered to the table. I said, that's not what Tom Simmons told me. And Anthony said, it doesn't matter, that's what I'm telling you. It has to be stationary, but we did intend for that to be the finale and to be lowered over the table, which is an incredible effect if you can do that in a ballroom that have the motored pulleys that can allow it to be lowered over the tabletop. Talk about a wow table. When everyone is seated at a wedding I did in Houston, we lowered all those centerpieces out of the ceiling over the tables. And it really blew everyone away. They couldn't remember anything except that one aspect. So think about that when you have the ability to do that.
So at the third layer, we try to using different, we have more money to, if your customer have more money to plan, we can using some of the material, like I introduced 2 more material, like rainbow oasis at the top to make it square, and also I using some of the wire, flat wire from the square oasis, so we can get a little top up.
Let's talk just a minute before we do the final reveal as what's going on here about the additional components that you're adding to the tabletop.
Okay, I'm using flat wire and then also using the parallel system. I'm using the same flower, same technique by using a different texture, and you can get a little unity and harmony within the whole table.
And to just top this off, if we had no budget and we wanted to do anything that we could, what we would do to send this over the top would be to add all of the lighting in, around, and on the table for just that extra look. Because like we've talked about already, lighting is so incredibly important to every party. It sets the tone, it sets the atmosphere, and it can really light up a room. You want to grab that? And for this one, nothing is going to make a room better than to be able to have an illuminated table. And it's hard to see from stage. If we can just darken this light just a little bit. The entire table is illuminated in red, which is available out in the market. So when you walk in the room, if the lights are kept low, all of the tables will be illuminated. and that really sets a tone for the entire room. Donald, I can't thank you enough for bringing this to stage.
Thank you.
You did an incredible job.
I'm not just only thank you for Jackie Lacey, thank you for bringing me in, and also thank you BoomNet, thank you Labco, thank you Accent Decor, thank you Smita Oasis, thank you everyone come and help us at the backstage and also at the back room. And I especially have someone from Asia, a whole bunch of people come from Asia. Thank you so much from Singapore and Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, remember that to celebrate properly, you want to collaborate with everyone you possibly can. By joining hands, it's a great way to reach out and have someone support you, to be able to raise that level of creativity. Put the pieces of the puzzle together by asking someone to come in and make it a group effort. That's not only going to make your event better, but it's also going to increase the enjoyment for everyone that participates in the group. I want to share just a little bit about how helping, not just within the industry, but for our own level. A lot of people know that my mother is in a nursing home and has been for quite some time. I walked in